vicious bite. Take me in, O tender woman, take me in for heaven's sake. Take me in, O tender woman, sighed the vicious snake. I saved you, cried the woman, and you've bitten me, but why? You know your bite is poisonous, and now I'm going to die. Shut up, silly woman, said the reptile with a grin. You knew damn well I was a snake before you took me in.
Welcome back to Notify America. We have multiple pressing stories to get to, stories that include where the first family is coincidentally vacationing right now, or rather, who they're vacationing with. One of the most powerful families in all of media, all while negative story after negative story continue pouring out onto the airwaves. We also look at just how many people, illegal immigrants, have entered the United States in just the last 3 months. The numbers are shocking, and the flow is only increasing. This is beyond devastating to young Americans who need a job, want to buy a house, because the levels that we're talking about are so insane, it's hard to comprehend. It's so bad, in fact, that Democrat strongholds, liberal enclaves like Chicago, New York City, Denver, are now demanding that something happens, demanding that their politicians take action and do something about it, as there's just too many people. Also, we have new polling that shows a surprising voter issue that's never been important to left-leaning voters, but it is now, and it's stumping commentators on CNN. We have the footage, and we'll end with Trump's new revised snake poem, spun up and released to fit the current moment perfectly, current moment that we're living in. We'll play that in full at the end of the video. But before we get started, press the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, share the video with a friend. All of that helps out. The first family announced they have landed in the Caribbean yesterday to begin their week-long vacation on the island of St. Croix. And according to them, the room and board will not be paid for by you, the taxpayer. Instead, they're staying free of charge at the mansion of one of the most powerful families in all of media, Bill and Connie Neville, a name that may not be as commonplace as Rupert Murdoch, but Bill Neville probably has more sway with broad-range media than anyone else in America. His company, US Viking, it's a software company that provides a news content platform used by most major news outlets, including the Associated Press, the BBC, ESPN, etc. Bill Neville, by the way, was also one of the guests that Joe Biden invited to a recent state dinner at the White House. Here's what the New York Post says. Bill Neville, 60, is the founder of software company US Viking, which makes a news content platform called ENPS that's marketed by the Associated Press. He and Connie, 59, originally from Alabama. Viking's ENPS software is used by 800 news outlets, including the BBC and ESPN. According to a profile on their website, or on the Virgin Islands Economic Development Authority website, the platform allows outlets to easily search multimedia content, easily adapt stories for digital publishing, and seamlessly integrate with digital and social media platforms. Meanwhile, President Biden is dealing with a bombardment of negative press lately, and it's only ramping up. This is after Biden just scolded the media for incorrectly reporting on the state of the U.S. economy, telling the press to report on inflation correctly, he said. A bit of a coincidence, though, right? Yelling about all this negative press coverage, and now he's vacationing at Bill Neville's St. Croix mansion. Well, regardless what he and Bill do together this week on the beaches of St. Croix, it won't change what's happening back on the mainland, as the numbers of illegal immigrants crossing the border have exploded. We've been reporting on this recently, but the scale is almost unimaginable. In the last 3 months, around 800,000 migrants have entered the country illegally. 800,000 people in just 3 months, folks. That's around the population of Denver, Colorado. We just added another Denver, Colorado of brand new people, not in the last few years or the last 12 months, in just the last 90 days. And it's continuing to escalate. 250,000 reportedly entered in the month of November alone. We all know as well that December is probably way worse. We only have 360 million people in this country to start with. Well, in 3 months, we added 800,000 more. Not to mention 1.1 million Americans died during the pandemic. So our native population keeps dropping, but the foreign population continues to grow. And these people obviously are going to need jobs and are going to need homes, the same jobs and homes that young Americans need. So it's a problem. And the party of open borders is beginning to realize that they have a real issue. Watch.
What do voters think about immigration right now?
Yeah, it's becoming a real top issue here. So the top issue facing the nation. Look, the economy is still number one. It was number one in August. It's number one now. But take a look at the immigration/border security. It was just at 11% in August. Look where it's hopped to now, 19%. So it's closing in on the economy. In a number of different polls I've looked at, immigration and border security is running a closer second place to the economy as we head into 2024. And you might be thinking, though, okay, this is just Republican voters who are feeling this way. But I want you to take a look here, because I think this is rather interesting. The most Google searches for migrants by state. Look at all these states, Phil. They're all blue states. Illinois is 1, New York is 2, Massachusetts is 3, New Jersey is 4, Colorado is 5, and of course, there's been a lot of talk about the migrant crisis in both Illinois and New York, and it seems like even voters in those states, very blue states, states that Democrats win in general elections almost always, they are focusing on this issue as well.
And it gets worse because there's nothing in place to stop this from happening. It's just continuing. Unimpeded, our politicians are doing nothing about it. Our president's encouraging it. Our military doing nothing about it. Anytime, by the way, you hear a politician say we have to send our military to the southern border, no, they're completely full of it. They're lying to you because the military's already on the border, folks. They've been there. And all they're doing is just speeding up the processing of these people coming into the country, helping to make the process run smoother. They have no legal authority to deny them entry, so it's all BS. This entire thing is a complete psyop, folks, making us think it's like some complex problem to solve, something like Middle East peace, when it's the simplest problem in the world. All the Congress has to do is change the law to permit and require Border Patrol to deny all legal immigrants entry. If you cross the border illegally, you're denied entry. That's it. The same exact way that every military base functions in this country, or the airport, or any guarded building. If you try to enter the terminal, for example, at the airport, you're only permitted entry if you have your ticket and your identification. Otherwise, you're denied entry. Let me know if I'm missing something here, but this is deliberate, all right? Both parties are complicit. If they wanted it fixed, they could solve it in a single day. In another story, Israel's President Bibi Netanyahu just called on all Western leaders to begin plans to start absorbing Palestinian refugees. Middle East Eye writes this: Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has told his supporters that he is working on finding countries ready to absorb Palestinians from Gaza. The Israeli newspaper Israel Hayom said Netanyahu made comments at a meeting of his Likud party on Monday in which he sought to clarify Israel's plans for after the war had ended. He said, "Our problem is countries that are ready to absorb them, and we are working on it," Netanyahu said. The world is already discussing the possibilities of voluntary immigration, he said, adding that a team must be established to ensure that those who want to leave Gaza to a third country can do so. It needs to be settled. It has strategic importance for the day after the war. So think about what's happening here. The people who are crossing the border, the 800,000 people in the last 3 months, many of them aren't from Central and South America. Almost none of them are Mexicans. Mexicans are great. Hell, we'd be happy to have Mexicans as their hardworking, very family-oriented type values, but people in Mexico don't want to come to the U.S. anymore. It's actually the opposite now. More Americans are migrating to Mexico than vice versa. The 800,000 people are coming from all over the world, folks. Nigeria, the Middle East, Asia. And when you think about it, like, just try to imagine organizing this type of mass relocation effort. It seems impossible, but they're doing it. We went over in detail who's behind it in a few videos ago, who's helping organize all of this. You can watch it after this if you haven't seen it yet. So with all of this happening, President Trump decided to redeploy his famous snake poem. He redid it, spiced it up, and it's more fitting today, right now, than it has been in the past. Watch this.
On her way to work one morning, down the path along the lake, a tender-hearted woman saw a poor, half-frozen snake. Her pretty colored skin had been all frosted with the dew. "Poor thing," she cried, "I'll take you in, and I'll take care of you. Take me in, O tender woman, take me in for heaven's sake. Take me in, O tender woman," cried the vicious snake. She wrapped him up all cozy in a comforter of silk and laid him by her fireside with some honey and some milk. She hurried home from work that night, and soon as she arrived, she found the pretty snake she'd taken in had been revived. Take me in, O tender woman. Take me in for heaven's sake. Take me in, O tender woman, sighed the vicious snake. She clutched him to her bosom. You're so beautiful, she cried. But if I hadn't brought you in by now, you truly would have died. She stroked his pretty skin again and kissed him and held him tight. But instead of saying, thank you, ma'am, the snake gave her a vicious bite. Take me in, O tender woman, take me in for heaven's sake. Take me in, O tender woman, sighed the vicious snake. I saved you, cried the woman, and you've bitten me, but why? You know your bite is poisonous, and now I'm going to die. Shut up, silly woman, said the reptile with a grin. You knew damn well I was a snake before you took me in. Does that remind you of anything? Be ready, because what they're allowing into our country is very, very bad.